Well, hello, everybody. My name is Mike Peterson, and I'm the co-founder of the Science and Design Summit. I'm also CEO of Visionary Design Marketing. And I'm pretty excited to be able to be here today and tell you a little bit about what's going on with the science and design. For most of my career, I was in the world of publishing. I was an advertising director or publisher of House Beautiful magazine and Country Living, and more recently, Lux magazine. And 7 years ago, when I was still publisher of Lux magazine, I was having lunch with an architect in Denver. The architect's name was Don Ruggles. And so, I was there to sell him a page of advertising, but he wasn't having anything of it. He wanted to talk about how beauty improves health. And at first, it just went right over my head. It was so conceptual. But the more he talked, the more I was intrigued, like a light went on, and the more he talked, the brighter the light got. And so I started studying after the lunch. I started studying the subject of beauty and nature and design and how it improves health. And he wrote a book about a year later called Beauty, Neuroscience, and Architecture. And I got it, and I just fell in love with the subject. I left the publishing world and have devoted the last 7 years to learning about and helping designers and the design industry overall understand that we really are an alternative health resource. The Science and Design Summit is a series of summits that we've taken all across the country and also in Canada, in Toronto. We've already presented the summit in, let's say, Florida and Atlanta and Toronto and San Francisco and Los Angeles. And coming up is Las Vegas on July 24th. And after that, we go to Boston and then Minneapolis, down to Dallas, and ultimately ending up in New York. The summit is actually 6 different seminars, which carry 6 different HSW health and safety CEUs as well, by the way. What's important about the summit is that it's not a bunch of panels of people from our industry talking about things. The summit is led by neuroscientists and academics and medical specialists talking about how beauty, design, and nature biophilia actually do lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, create GSR, which is galvanic skin response. So it's very scholarly, and the response that we have gotten has just been phenomenal. Turnout has been great, but the response afterwards, we're seeing designers and other people in the design industry begin to implement and use some of the things that we're talking about in the summit. So I hope if you have time, I hope you can join us for any one of those summits. Just go to scienceanddesign.com and you'll be led to the right connection. Nature is the compositional grammar of design. Think about it for a minute. Prior to 6,000 years ago, when we began to commune as a people, the basis for design and beauty was a leaf. It was a raindrop on a petal. It was the babbling brook. It was nature. And so nature is the original compositional grammar, the origin of great design today. And so that's one of the things that the attendees are learning and realizing. That's a wow factor, and that has to be brought into the design composition today. One of the things that we're getting as feedback from the attendees to the summit is that it's really game changing and it's cutting edge for them, that they're learning that their value proposition is so much greater than they're giving themselves credit for. One of the words that we hear in the response is the word validation, that the science is now validating the importance of what you as an industry, as an interior designer, do. You're creating beauty, and when you create beauty, science is telling us that you're improving their health. As a matter of fact, there's a doctor who heads up environmental medicine at the University of Texas, and she's famous for a quote where she says, "Architects and designers have a greater ability to improve health than medical professionals." Now, if that's not game changing, if that doesn't spin your head, if that doesn't make your buttons pop, nothing's going to, because the people that we trust with our health, doctors, are saying that we have a greater ability to improve health than they do. And let's take that to the bank. Science is studying our evolution and how we have grown as a people over the hundreds of thousands of years. And we've been driven by two two different motivations, survival or pleasure. And truly, it's pleasure that has allowed us to evolve. And one of the things that we're realizing in the summit is that because we have this fundamental need for pleasure, and that's how we've grown as a people, what we're doing as an industry is satisfying those pleasure-seeking motivations. You know, you're providing beauty and design and nature in this case. And so you're just continuing and extending what we have needed as a people over the millennia. Isn't that exciting? The designers who've come to our summit, who have really embraced this, have already changed their businesses, and they're now leaders in their community. They're changing the way design is perceived in their communities. So don't just dip your toe in, own it. Several years ago, I really enjoyed working in the theater. When I was working out of New York City, when my daughter was still young, she came home from kindergarten with a flyer that said Annie, and she thought it was to go see the show, and it was a flyer for auditions. And so we asked her if she wanted to audition. She said yes, and we watched our 5-year-old get center stage with a spotlight on her, singing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow." And it was the kind of thing that I said, okay, you got to stop being afraid of this, get into it yourself. And so I did, and ultimately, the big surprise for people is that I ultimately, a couple of years later, ended up playing the role of Don Quixote as the Man of La Mancha. And I'll tell you what, after singing The Impossible Dream in front of 750 people and nobody walking out, there's nothing that scares you anymore.